Noga. Welcome to Australian Musician.
Thanks for having me.
New Album King, loosely based on a 1830s play called Woyzeck. What elements or spirit did you take from that play for this album?
It's a tricky one, that one. It's a play that I've been aware of for a long time. A lot of people are aware of it. It's pretty well known. The great unfinished play by George Büchner. There's been lots of interpretations of it over the years. There's a whole story as to why I chose to do this, which we can get into later. But I basically just took. It's pretty loosely based. I've kind of transported the story. The original story is a soldier returns home from war. To cut a long story short, goes insane, thinks that his partner's being with someone else, kills her, kills himself. It's a comedy. And I kind of stole plot points from here and there. So my version of events is kind of set in 1950s small town Australia. And this couple, Jack and Mary, who aren't having a good time. And he goes insane, and I won't tell you how it ends, but that was the thing. George Büchner wrote this play and he never finished it. So the end is open to interpretation for anyone. So I kind of took some liberties, and I won't tell you what happens in the end.
Being a concept album loosely based on an 1830s play with narration, without hearing it, people might get the impression that it's a fairly highbrow experience, but the songs are quite accessible. In essence, they're pop rock songs.
Yeah.
Was that something you thought about in the creation of it?
Yeah, it was a bit of both. I definitely wanted it's a pretty strong concept album. There's a strong narrative through the whole thing. There's a start, a middle, and an end. I wanted the songs still to be standalone songs because not everyone's. I mean, I've got. I wrote the thing, so I know what's going on throughout each song, but people might not, if they don't have the liner notes in front of them, or, they're not familiar with the story, they might not know what's going on. So it was important, I think, to have each song as a standalone song that people can just whack on and cut to track 4 and it still works. You don't have to listen to the whole thing. And a lot of the time the songs were also, during the writing, were kind of influenced by what was happening in the story at that point. Like, for example, midway through the album, the main character Jack starts hallucinating and going mad. So that part of the album had to sound like that, which was really fun, a really fun way to write. I've never had. It's like I set myself my own brief. I've never had a brief before. It was always just like, write what you feel like. But this time it was like, no, you have to write the sound of a man going insane, or the sound of a couple breaking up, or something like that, which was really fun. Yeah. But I hope that the songs stand alone as well, and that it can come across as highbrow or arty-farty, but it's still a rock and roll album, that you can put on a Friday night. And there's songs that you can dance to. Murder and dance go well together.
Paul Dempsey is the producer. Why did you decide on Paul as producer?
Paul was always my choice, my first choice. I've known Paul for years, and we've been pretty close friends for a long time, and I know the way he works, and I really needed him on board because we're quite opposite in some ways, in that I'm pretty loose with my songwriting, and maybe I'm lazy actually, and he's not. He works hard, and he's tight, and my songs need that sometimes. They need a little, they need a screwdriver and a little tightening up here and there, and he's brilliant at that. So I really wanted him for that reason. He actually helped a lot with the songwriting in the later stages. Like, there's bits that him and I worked on together that I hadn't written at all, So this project is as much his as it is mine, really. On the album I'm playing drums, guitar, some of the guitars. Paul plays a lot of the electric stuff because he can do crazy solos that I can't. So I played, drums, guitar, vocals obviously, piano, little bits and pieces here and there, and Paul pretty much did all the bass parts and electric guitar. Yeah.
Did you use the same kit all the way through, or are you looking for different sounds?
We messed around quite a lot with the drum sounds. We were really concentrating on getting really nice big drum sounds and big bass sounds. So we did that at Sing Sing Studios here in Melbourne, which is brilliant, absolutely brilliant place to go. And yeah, we experimented with a lot of sounds all across this album, not just drum sounds, but yeah, we took the kit apart and Paul. Oh, at one point, Paul and I both were playing 2 drum kits at the same time because he can play drums as well, of course. So yeah, there's a lot of experimentation there. But I don't think it's too over the top either. I think each sound works for each song.
Which kits did you use?
Which drum kit? God, that's a really good question. I've got an old Pearl that I've used for drones recordings and my own stuff for years, like an old 70s Pearl. It's a beautiful maple shell thing. And then I believe we did the drums a long time ago, but I think I stole Shannon from Dallas Crane's drum kit. I can't remember. That's terrible. I'm pretty sure there was a mix of mine and his, yeah. Or maybe I stole Clint from something for Kate's drum kit. Yeah, that's probably it.
Noah Taylor as the narrator.
Yeah.
Was he your first choice?
He was, yeah, thankfully, and he said yes, which was great. I realised kind of halfway through recording that although I know what's happening in the narrative at any given moment, it might not be crystal clear to the listener. So I thought, how can I, if someone's listening and they don't, because what if they don't have the liner notes in front of them? Because in the notes that you can kind of explain the story, it's written there and you can see what's going on. But what if they're listening without that and it's the first time they're hearing it or something? And I thought, how am I going to do this? And I thought, I need a narrator. And I was thinking of those old, I used to have books when I was a kid and they came with like a little 7-inch record and you put the record on and read along, and when you heard the ding it was time to turn the page. It was that kind of idea. That's what I wanted. Just someone that pops up and guides you through the story here and there. And he also plays characters as well. It's, you know, he can be the voices in Jack's head, or he plays Mary at one point. So I thought, who would be good for this? And Noah sprang to mind, and I've known Noah vaguely for a while. He used to come to drones gigs when we were in London and stuff like that. He lives over there. And I was thinking about his voice and I thought it's just perfect. He sounds Australian. He's got a pretty thick Australian accent, but kind of like an old school Australian accent, like an old cricket commentator or something like that. But he can also sound really menacing and scary as well. So I was like, it's got to be him. So I wrote to him and thankfully he said yes. Yeah. In fact, I didn't hear back from him for months. He said, yes, I'll do it. And then there was silence and I sent him the parts and didn't hear from him. And he was filming, I think, Game of Thrones at the time. Pretty busy guy. And then I opened my emails one day and there was like 50 emails from him and he'd done 10 takes of each bit in a different voice and in a different character. And I thought, wow, I'm lucky. This is what he does. He's a professional. So that was really, really nice. Yeah, really nice of him.
Mary lives on the outskirts of town in the house that her and Jack used to call home. She dreams, small dreams. Dreams of red curtains, a sleeping baby, Valentine's Day. Jack doesn't live here anymore. He spends his days at the factory.
Apart from playing these songs live in a rock show context, would you like at some point to do a really theatrical version or a film version?
Yeah, that was always been the idea, to do something theatrical with it. The whole time I was writing it and recording it, was kind of felt like writing the soundtrack to a film that hasn't been filmed yet. And that's what I wanted. And I'm already making plans to put on a production, like a stage production of it. I've been talking to a dance company out of Queensland called Dance North, who are like a modern dance company, and they're really interested in doing something. And it really lends itself to something like that. And even with the artwork and everything like that, I made sure that it's all quite theatrical, for want of a better word, because I've had a view to do that from the get-go. So yeah, that's going to be kind of next year's project, I think.
Yeah. when you were with the Drones, you kindly guest edited
Yes.
a version of Australian Musician when we were in print.
Yeah.
And you did a wonderful story on the beds that you stayed on while on tour. Is
Yep.
that something you've carried on?
You won't believe it. So for years and years touring with the Drones, I had this thing, it was kind of my routine or my ritual to keep myself from going crazy on the road. I had to take a photo of every single bed that I slept in. And I ended up with about 400 or 500 of them, you know, from every hotel room. And some of them, they had little stories connected to them. And myself and Dan Luscombe used to talk about this a lot, who was the guitarist in the Drones, and we're like, well, you should do a book. You've got to put this out as a book. And it's just tales from the road, you know, but this is a great way of getting it across. Who's the idiot that didn't back up his computer and it got stolen with all the photos on it? I've lost them all.
So you're touring this album starting in September 16 in Sydney, finishing at Mona, Hobart on the 30th.
Yeah.
Then what?
Then New Zealand, and then after that, I started thinking about the next record already. It was 5 years in between The Balladeer Hunter and King, which is too long. So I've been thinking about the next record and kind of starting to write some stuff. I can't see myself. I've had so much fun with this album, and it's been so different for me. And I feel like, and I know everyone says this, but it feels like the best thing I've done for me personally by far. I can't see myself going back and writing just a normal kind of folk album or something like that again. I'm really enjoying telling stories through other people's eyes, and yeah, the whole kind of concept album concept. So that I'm slowly thinking of the next thing to do already, and as we said before, hopefully working with this dance company to stage this maybe at festivals and stuff like that. They're pretty keen, I'm pretty keen. I'd like to do a tour as well, using more, I don't know, like multimedia, maybe film and stuff like that, and presenting it in different venues. While I'm up for playing in pubs and doing the normal circuit that you do here in Australia, I think this album is by far, you know, it can be staged somewhere really crazy and somewhere really different. And I'd like to do it. The whole album was actually influenced a bit by this immersive theatre company called Punch Drunk, who I went and saw while I was living in London. And they do these theatrical productions where the audience members wear a mask, and anyone without a mask is an actor, and you're in the sets and you just walk around like, you know, it might be a house or something like that, and the play goes on around you. I love that idea, and that, in a sense, that's what I was trying to do a little bit with this album, where I think at one point on the record, Noah Taylor, his voice is a DJ on the radio, and he says, and here's Mike Noga with Love Meets No Stranger. So he actually says my name on my album. I like that idea of breaking down that fourth wall, you know, and I want to explore that in a live sense as well, and somehow involve the audience in the gig or in the show somehow. These are all things I'm thinking about, but nothing set in stone yet. But I've got some work to do.
Mike Noga, thanks for your time.
Thank you, pleasure.